We're here, it's Tuesday, and you know exactly what that means. It's another edition of the 2-2 Podcast. Listen, today's episode is going to be spicy. You do not want to miss a moment of it. We are going to have a little bit of a talk. We're continuing our series entitled, They've Got It Twisted. So you don't want to miss a moment of it today. So you know the move. Grab your friends, grab your family, grab your coworkers, grab the people you don't like. Let's have a conversation. See you in a minute. Have you ever wanted to record a podcast but didn't know the way? Well, I've got good news. Let me tell you about something. It's called Anchor. And Anchor is the easiest way to record a podcast. Let me explain. It's absolutely free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So here's what I need you to do. Please download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. So we are continuing our series, They Got It Twisted. And thank you so much to everybody who has been listening to this series. Last week we took a bit of a break, even though it is in connection just a little bit with what I'm talking about today. But thank you to all of you that listened to the episode on Church Hurt. I think in a pivotal time like this, we all need to have a discussion about church hurt. We all need to have a discussion about, what happens when the people that we have trusted to pray for us and love us and intercede for us and intercede with us, oftentimes gossip about us and gossip about our situation that we have been trusted them with, and how sometimes we're abused and manipulated. Thank you to all of you who have listened to that episode. If you have not listened to that episode, it is called I Didn't Come Here for This. And it's basically navigating and healing from church hurt. So I encourage you to listen to that and pass it along. And hey, man, I appreciate you all. But today we are continuing our series entitled They've Got It Twisted. And today I wanted to talk about bad love. Bad love. Here we go. It's going to get spicy. So we have all endured and encountered and endured bad love. We have either been a victim of it, a perpetrator of it, or both. Sometimes most cases, bad love comes from our upbringing and what we have seen, generational curses. Other times it comes from just being abused. It comes from being abused, not just physically, but mentally. Just abuse, just psychologically, and just socially abused. It comes from manipulation. It comes from just when people hold things over you so you can stay, but at the same time don't expect you to at the same time mistreat you. Or when somebody has a lot of high standards for you, but they don't adhere to the standards, to their own standards. That's bad love. When they tell you, you better not cheat on me, but you cheating on, you better not cheat on me, but they cheating on you. Let me stop. Let me stop, because that might trigger somebody. So trigger warning. I didn't give a trigger warning before this, but trigger warning. Listen. Today we're going to have a bit of a talk because it is needed in such a great way. We need to have that conversation about bad love. There's so many people right now in bad situations, bad relationships, bad situationships. And if they don't find a way out of what they're in, it'll lead to something that'll be more damage than good. And that goes without saying, but it needs to be said anyway. So, bad love. Is I'm gonna be honest with you. For those who have been perpetrators of bad love, who have been manipulative and have been, abusive. Some of y'all think this whole bad love, toxic relationship thing is cute. It's not. Don't let these people who glamorize toxic love for clout tell you that it's just this great thing. It's not. It's definitely not. If you're in a toxic relationship, please understand that there is a way out before it's too late. But oftentimes bad love and toxic love is just so glamorized. We've seen it. People cheat on one another and then they come back. And they cheat on one another and then they come back. And they cheat on one another and they come back. And one person cheats on the other and then they're screaming. They're going to, and then, people fighting in the street. The couples fighting in the street and then getting back together. We glamorize toxic love like it's just this amazing Walt Disney fairy tale movie type deal. And we see it in movies, we see it as glamorization, but in some cases we see it as an example of what not to be in. And I would rather have an example of what not to. I would rather have to see something that is an example of what not to be in, so I can become a better person. I don't want to see an example of somebody just being toxic for clout, because we're seeing a lot of clout chasers when it involves toxic love. We're seeing a lot of the toxic, clout chasers and tabloid chasers. Because they know good love doesn't always sell. Doesn't always sell. I'll give you an example. You ever watch the news? And I know the news is talking about the news is such a sore subject. It's a sore topic. But you ever watched your local news? And oftentimes the bad stories get the longest segments. You ever notice that? You ever notice that when somebody gets, some type of crime in the neighborhood, that gets the longest segment. When somebody does something wrong in government, that's the longest segment. Or when somebody, does something abusive, that's the longest segment. Yes. You need to know. Those are oftentimes the longest segments. But when there's something good that happens, those segments are oftentimes very, very short. Enough to tell you the gist of it. Oftentimes that happens. So what does that mean for relationships? What does that mean for the love that we give and receive? Oftentimes, the toxic love situations that we see in our world get the most press. Those get the most press. Whether you want to believe it or not, this is not an argument. This is just, this is what I've seen. The toxic stories get the most press. The toxic love stories, the bad love stories where there's abuse and chaos and, extramarital affairs and affairs in general and entanglements and all of that. Those get the most. Whereas a lot of these relationships that are doing well, they're doing absolutely great, don't get as much. It gets a lot of press, but it doesn't get a lot of press as the bad ones. Because there are some people in life that don't want to see other people happy. I'll say that again. There are some people in life, regardless if they're in a relationship or not, whether they're doing well or doing better than you or not, there are some people, whether we know them or not, that don't want to see you doing better than them, that don't want to see you in a better relationship than they are in. There are some people in our lives that are like that. And so they feed off of the next bad, toxic, horrible story that they hear. They feed off of that. That's all they consume. Because there are a lot of people that are angry and jealous and don't want to see other people happy. And so a lot of cases, we get into relationships with people like this. We get in connections with people. We marry people like this. One of my favorite movies in the whole entire world is What's Love Got to Do with It? And if you are a listener of this show, I like to give examples from that movie on this podcast. So we all know the story of Anna Mae Bullock from Nutbush, Tennessee. Nutbush city limits. Highway number 19, where people keep the city clean. Nutbush. Okay. And her story started off rough with her mom leaving. Her mom leaving and going away. It started off rough. Bad love from our family members. Oftentimes we're neglect is a form of bad love. In a lot of cases, we're neglected at a young age. Neglect. And neglect isn't always, I'm always beating the kids and not feeding them. Sometimes neglect, and most of the times neglect is not listening to another person's issues when they're so desperately trying to have a listening ear. That is a form of bad love, is neglect. Show of hands, I know you don't see me and I can't see you. I say that every week for some reason, and I don't know why, but it's so funny. But show of hands, have you ever been, and I know this is going to be a trigger warning. This is so trigger warning for anybody. Have you ever been neglected? Have you ever been neglected? Sometimes we're dealing with the residual effects from the past, even in adulthood, from all those times that we've been neglected and abandoned. Abandonment is another form of bad love. So, as I go back to this example of Tina Turner, and what's love got to do with it? She was her mom decided to just leave town. Thank God she had a grandmother that raised her. Had a grandmother that raised her, but gave her the brutal truth that her mom was never coming back. But as Anime Bullock, aka Tina Turner, got older, she reunited with her mom and her sister. She has a sister now. And she ends up, singing and meeting Ike. And at first, the relationship is great. Y'all know this story. I'm just paraphrasing and telling it the Chris way. I'm telling it my way. As the story progresses and the movie progresses, they're in a relationship and they have a child. And this is when the first part, let's go back. So, there's that, okay, no, I'm sorry. I'm here. Just, give me a minute here. There's that part when she has the baby. It's that part when she has the baby. She's in the hospital. And he sneaks her out of the hospital right after having a baby to go get married. She hasn't fully healed. She hasn't fully recovered. And then the next scene that you see is her getting ready to perform at a show. She's with her baby. And I go, she looks a little peaked. The doctor goes, she shouldn't be performing. She got out the hospital too early. She shouldn't be out here performing after having a baby not too long ago. She's not fully healed yet. I recommend that she doesn't perform. She's backstage now. And Ike is rushing people along. Come on, get to your places, get dressed, do what you need to do. In usual Ike Turner fashion, which is very aggressive. And this is when the first part of manipulation comes in. She's just had a baby. And he says, listen, we got this child, and if you don't work, we don't get paid. If you don't work, you won't get paid. And he starts getting aggressive about the situation. And eventually, the next thing you see is her. She's standing, tears running. She's standing, knowing she's in physical pain after having a baby. She hasn't gone through the necessary postpartum recovery that she needs to go through, where she needs to rest and recuperate and spend time with her child. But she's up performing. And they introduce Ike and Tina Turner. And she's standing there, and Ike walks over to her, kisses her on the cheek. She's got tears streaming down her face. And she starts singing, "You're Just a Fool in Love." I may got the name of that song wrong, but there's a part of that song that says, "Why he treats you like he do when he's such a good man." When he treats you the way he does, when he's supposed to be such a good man. It was so ironic that they were singing that song right at that moment when he treats you like he treats you like he does. When he's such a good man. How does a good man treat somebody bad? How does a good person treat somebody bad? How does a good person manipulate somebody? How? She's dealt with abandonment. Psychologically, physical abandonment. And now she's dealing with Manipulation. And then, of course, so, you watch the movie, you keep going. I encourage you, if you're too young and you don't know about the movie, go watch the movie. It's a story that you need to watch, because it is a prime example of the love that oftentimes we get ourselves in. It's a primary example of the love that we oftentimes get ourselves in. How many times have you been in a situation in your life that has been as abusive and maniacal and manipulative and filled with abandonment and just so many horrible, vile, toxic things? How many people have been in that situation? I know I've been in that place. So as the movie goes on, of course, you've heard me give this example. There is another example of manipulation. They're having a pool party. They got some great success. They're doing really well at this point. They're having a pool party at their house. Ike is busy recording music. The last thing on his mind is a pool party. He's not thinking about a pool party. He's thinking, I got to get another number one hit. I got to keep putting food on the table. Not a moment to relax. Not a moment to relax. And Tina comes in there and says something to him. And it triggers him. And all of a sudden, the physical abuse comes in. This may be triggering for some people right now. But I'm speaking to somebody that has been physically abused. I don't care who you are, man or woman. Under no circumstances, and I mean no circumstances whatsoever, should you be in a situation where a person feels that if they put their hands on you, that's love. Abuse, whether physical, psychological, is not a love language. Abuse is not a love language. Physical touch, maybe. Physical touch, yes. But not punching somebody in the face because they did something wrong or they spoke up for themselves. That, my friends, is not a form of a love language. That is not a love language. Abuse, again, is not a love language. They've got it twisted. The people around you, the people you're connected to that feel as if this is the type of thing, we love each other. But if you loved me, you wouldn't put your hands on me. They got it twisted. You're not going to put your hands on me. You got one time. Forget 3 strikes and you're out. You got one time to put your hands on me. Physical abuse is not cute. It's not glamorous. This goes without saying, but it needs to be said. Physical abuse is not a love language. Psychological abuse is not a love language. And if anybody has ever told you, but we still love each other. No, y'all don't. Y'all don't love each other. Y'all don't love each other if you're always hitting each other in front of the kids. No, that ain't how it goes. No. So, as I said, he's physically abusing her. And he's dragging her through the house. He's dragging her through the house. People outside, the guests, the band, the backup singers, family members, all of that, see what's going on. See what's going on. They see what the issue is. But no one jumps up to help. But here's the part that struck me the most. Just outside of her being beaten and drugged through the hallway, screaming and crying. The next scene that you see after she's been beaten and crumpled, and she's crumpled into a ball. The next scene that you see is this. She's asleep in the master bedroom. Party's been over. All the guests have left. He walks in the room with some flowers and a gift, and kisses her on the cheek. So now, from a young age, she started with abandonment, manipulation, physical abuse, psychological abuse, and now manipulation. It's a never-ending cycle when you're in a toxic relationship, when you're dealing with bad. It's a never-ending loop when you're dealing with bad love. How many people can attest to this? That they've been in that never-ending loop, that never-ending toxic loop. How many people can attest to that for their own lives? How many people can attest that they've also put people through that loop? So, as the movie goes on, you see different forms of abuse, ranging from, talking crazy to even sexual abuse. We all know that scene. You don't need a depiction. You don't need a description of that scene. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what scene I'm talking about. You know. In a lot of cases, with this type of love, people try to find a way out and oftentimes don't. And oftentimes they don't find a way out until it's too late. They've got everything lined up, and now it's too late. And so many times we hear about people who take people out all because they want to leave a bad situation. We hear about it so many times. We hear about couples. We hear about situations in life where there's a person who is going to college and their significant other is afraid that when they go to college that they're going to meet somebody else better than them. And so they'll do whatever they can. They'll do whatever it takes. They'll say that they're pregnant. They'll do different things to manipulate and deceive. Offer somebody to stay. We've seen it. We've seen people's careers ruined. Lives altered because of this. We've seen it. And if you haven't seen it, you've been hiding under a rock. There have been numerous stories of situations like this, where people have been extorted. Yeah. But there's another scene, and I'm using this as an example. This whole story, this whole movie, What's Love Got to Do with It, as an example, and I'm giving you the pieces that are bad love. It's a part where she leaves. She's trying to leave with the kids. She told her mom not to tell anybody. But all Ike had to do was pay her mom off. And her mom told everything. And he caught them at the bus stop. At the Greyhound bus stop. They were trying to get away from an abusive situation. But the one thing that oftentimes we've seen this scene before, is the part where they're fighting. Tina Turner finally fights back. And they're fighting in the limo. They're walking in the hotel. Both a bloody, busted up mess. And there's that final part where she finally just runs. Nothing else. She doesn't have anything on her. She just runs. And he tried one last time to manipulate her. And 2 times, actually, to manipulate her and get her to stay. One time she's getting out of a session. And he meets her in the parking lot. Tries to close her door. And she goes, "Oh no, just in case I got to run up out of here." Just in case I got to run up out of here. "Oh no, you're not closing my door." And he talks about, they have a talk and whatnot. And he's talking about, "Well, I got this song for you. It's, this R&B type of song. It's not like what you singing right now," kind of throwing shade. But then when it all comes down to it, he's trying to get her back. He's trying to get her back, and it doesn't work. And when she denies it, when she rejects him, he tries to manipulate her again, be abusive. Psychologically, tells her, "You're not gonna be nothing. That stuff that you're singing ain't gonna work." Oh, but Miss Anna Mae Bullock is one of the most successful artists that we've seen in our time. Has sold millions upon millions upon millions of copies, sold out shows all over the world. But what she had to endure from the time she was a child to the time she finally got free. It's oftentimes a cycle that a lot of people never get out of. So I'm speaking to those of you today who are in a situation that they have been in way too long, where lies have been told and mistakes have been made and abuse has been, there's been abuse of love. I'm speaking to somebody today who's in that situation right now and thinking that there's no way out. Thinking that I can't get any, there's nothing any better than this. Knowing that there is. But they've been so psychologically conditioned to believe that there's nothing better than the situation that they're in now. I'm talking to somebody who wants to run and start life anew and start healing. I want to let you know today that there is a way out. You do not have to be in that situation any longer. But get out of there before it's too late. For your family's sake, for your children's sake, get out of there. Because love, and when you love somebody, oh man, you just don't treat them bad. We didn't listen to Donnell Jones from that, and it shows. Some of y'all didn't listen to Donnell Jones' song, Where I Want to Be, and it shows. And I want to let you know something. When you love somebody, you just don't treat them bad. You don't talk to them crazy. You don't put your hands on them. You don't manipulate them and mentally. You don't psychologically manipulate them. You don't psychologically abuse them. You don't do any of that. If you truly love somebody, you want to be with them, you don't treat them bad in any way, shape, or form. I close with this. That there's an old song that says, if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. I don't want to be in a situation where loving somebody is wrong. I want to know it's real. I want to know that the love isn't going to bite me in the butt later on. I want to know that this is going to be a situation where it's going to be healthy and not toxic. So I encourage you, I want to let you know, and I want to change the song up. If loving you is right, I don't want to be wrong. And right love and good love doesn't abuse. It doesn't mistreat. It doesn't manipulate. But you gotta be willing to get away from bad love. Hey, listen, thank you for joining the show today. Don't forget to follow the show page and my personal page. The show page is 22_podcast. That is 22_podcast on Instagram. And my personal page at AlexJ_live. That is AlexJ_live. Please don't forget the 22 podcast has merch. That's on 22apparel.threadless.com. That is 22apparel.threadless.com. See you soon.